hated it from A to Z. And whether it came to cone playing, or whether it was hooking and crooking, or trying to sell dope, whatever it was, I wanted to know how to be the best at it. So when I came into a relationship with God, I used to think that people that had a relationship with God was religious. But you know what? Having a personal relationship with God don't have nothing to do with religion, but it has a whole lot to do with what He has said about you and about a lifestyle. You know, living a lifestyle above, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Because, man, it's a difficult thing to love somebody that's spitefully using you. It's a difficult thing to do good to somebody that's doing you bad, man. That's hard stuff, man, And, one of the things that stuck out to me that was bigger than anything, here I am in prison and got a son in Memphis that I had never been responsible for. Well, when I was looking at that word, it said a man is worse than an infidel if he's not responsible for his children. So, and it was just stuff like that, man, that was like, wow, when I'm thinking this supposed to be religion.
Say that again, man. A man is worse than a what?
A man is worse than an infidel if he's not responsible for his children.
Why haven't more people built a spiritual foundation on that biblical teaching, you think? Especially in the black culture, where there's so many fatherless children.
I believe why that principle is so true and so hard to do is you can't give a person something you don't possess yourself. When you're talking about being responsible for somebody, I hear a lot of guys say stuff like, pastors, for instance, pastors' kids go bad too. But did that pastor actually sow the type of balance and the type of love and the type of caring that word is talking about a man is supposed to have with his relationship with his son or daughter? Or we can even go a step deeper than that. I should want for you what I want for myself. That's hard, man, because most of us, man, we want to be better. You know what I mean? We want to be the hottest thing on the track, versus understanding that, man, I'm not nothing if you're not anything. And that's a whole total different deal to me, I think about now, I done raised a 33-year-old and a 30-year-old, and they both, got degrees and doing very well. And, and at the time, I wasn't smoking or drinking or doing anything. And now I look back and I say, even from a standpoint of being a man, even if I did drink, or even if I did want to have a cigar or smoke, it would be something that I wouldn't have around the people that I am trying to sow into their lives, because I understand that every time I come in the presence of a young man or a young woman or a young child, I'm affecting them for the good or the bad. And until human beings in general get that, man, we still gonna be missing and going around and not only living toxic lives ourselves, but affecting other people for the bad, because we operate by our feelings and emotions, and feelings and emotions can lead you in the wrong direction sometimes. I think a person gotta have some kind of value system, some kind of belief system, that even when his own feelings and emotions don't line up with that truth, that he tries to center his life up with that. And that's examining yourself, it take a lot because, you know, we want to be the big man on campus, and it's not about who we offend or who we hurt. You know, it's about what we do. You know, what we want to do. And that's not always the best thing for people that we're coming in contact with.
How old were you when you discovered you had transformed from whatever to a man that you could look in the mirror and say, I like that guy?
I would have to say I was about 23, and I was in prison, and it didn't matter what somebody else believed. I wanted to always just be on the side of justice, and you know, it didn't have nothing to do with what my friends thought, but it had a lot to do with where I wanted to be in life, and that was on the side of justice. So I think that was the most positive thing that I noticed in my own life that was like, wow, you know.
What felt different about being in that space, in that place?
I guess what I have to say that felt different about it is, you know, we live our life, want to be liked and be loved by people, but when you grow up and really learn who you are, and I'm talking about who you are in your relationship with God, whomever you choose, then it's not about what I feel or what I think or what this group is doing. It's about what is the right thing to do for this situation.
So we're downtown Memphis, Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
Now, you was 23 years old when you felt that transformation. How long had you been incarcerated at that time?
I probably had been incarcerated probably about a year or so.
So how many years did you spend in prison?
A total of 8 calendar.
So for the next 7 years, even though you felt differently, you were in confinement.
Uh-huh.
So how did you manifest your manhood, although you were in a situation where you couldn't make any real decisions about your day-to-day? I take that back. You make decisions no matter where you are. But how did you sustain that momentum after you had that epiphany of sorts?
To be honest, it was freeing. It was liberating for me, even though I was supposed to be locked up. You know, it was the first time that I had ever experienced peace, because you got to keep in mind, my toxic idea about peace was the guy that's selling dope, the guy that's got money, the guy that's got the right car, you know, that was my utopia. You know, I remember sitting at a hotel room before I got arrested, and I was saying, man, you know, I got money, I got the car I want, I got the girl I want in the hotel, you know, I got dope. And I went back in the hotel room because even though I had all the stuff, I was so unhappy, you know, and I go right back in the hotel room and start using drugs. And when I thought about that contrast versus what was going on with me in prison at that time, I was thinking about how here it is, I don't have nothing. I don't have anything but a two-way understanding of who I really am in my relationship with God, you know. And you know, I guess what I mean by it was liberating, it was freeing, is here I am, supposed to be locked up, and got my freedom taken away from me, but yet and still I was enjoying and feeling more peace than I had ever experienced in my life, so I guess when I think about being locked up versus being out in the free world, what is called free world, which nothing is free, and still locked up because I had a drug addiction. My value system was totally just totally toxic, to be honest. And here it is, I'm in prison, and now I'm having to undo a lot of stuff that I had learned, man. That was some things that I thought were life, man, were painful, man. Yeah, it was painful, anytime, we throw a lot of cliches around, like blood is thicker than water, and man, nigga gotta be down and stay by this business, we throw around all these cliches, but man, at the end of the day, the thing that really holds us together, man, is treating people the way we want to be treated, and understanding what value we have that God has placed in each and every one of us. So it's a little difficult.
Now, you had spoken to me many years ago after I had met you about a vow you made while in prison. And in essence, what I gathered from that was that you reached a point where you asked God, you said, God, if you deliver me from my iniquity, I would never use drugs and alcohol again.
Yeah, that was actually September the 16th. I asked God.
What year?
September the 16th, 1986. And what it was is I was asking God, I had begun to examine my life, and I was looking at my drug addicted lifestyle, and I had figured out, man, if I could stop using drugs, maybe I may have a shot at this thing, because I was using drugs, I had the money, I had the car, I had the woman, but still my life was still unmanageable. So I asked God, I said, if you're real, I don't know nothing about you no more than what my mom and dad talk about, but now if you're real, I'm asking you to come into my life and to help me not to use drugs again. That was September the 16th, 1986. And that was when he made a believer out of me, because I had been in all kind of treatment programs, had tried to stop using drugs. And
was this before you got locked up?
Yeah, this was before I had got locked up.
So you actually made a commitment to stop using drugs before you went to prison?
Oh yeah.
Did you at that point fulfill that vow?
Never could do it, man. And it wasn't just that time. I had tried to stop several times, and I never could do it successfully, So I would try to mix it up, like, I said, well, I ain't gonna do no more drugs. I'm just gonna drink and smoke a little weed. Well, the drinking and smoking a little weed eventually led me to the cocaine. I said, well, I ain't gonna drink no hard stuff, I'm just gonna smoke me a blunt, smoke me a joint, and just drink me a beer. Well, eventually that beer and that joint would lead me on to the cocaine. I said, well, I ain't gonna do nothing but cocaine, but still, whatever sickness that I tried to put together with that mix, it never did work. And I asked God as I began to examine myself. I said, I done tried everything but you, my friends, whom some of them were cone players and some of these guys were...
What's that, 3-card Monte type stuff?
Yeah, well, cone players are guys that are able to really talk people out of money.
Oh, con.
Yeah.
See, that's that old Memphis drawl right there. Maybe you missed that. Where we at here, man? You got lost in your own town?
Yeah.
In the conversation of what's going on. I know we down here where we are. We can see that in all of these parts of Memphis that are still under redevelopment and still war-torn in some aspects.
Yeah, but we're down here on Vance, and I'm thinking that the hotel, Lorraine Motel, was down here off of Vance somewhere, which I have been a couple of times.
Well, we passed the sign that said Civil Rights Museum a minute ago. Well, this your town, man.
Yeah.
See, this is a Negro production, man. It's gonna be, there's gonna be a whole lot of editing there.
Yeah.
Let me just ask something. Hey, where's the Lorraine Hotel, the Civil Rights Museum at, bro? Huh? Go this way? All right, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, but
you should be ashamed, man. But that's all right, man. You don't live here no more, man, and you have a lot of foggy memories. When you was here, you was in the fog anyway. Ain't that ironic, man?
Yeah.
We talked about that before I started running this tape, man. That you said you really don't know Memphis because you was in a pocket of this city.
Yeah.
And you didn't stray from that.
Right.
And even when you strayed from it, it was with a focus of, getting back to your comfort zone, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why you don't know where the Lorraine Hotel is, because you wouldn't go over there and do some slanging.
Yeah, but I think that's just part of your ad lib down there.
Well, that's my specialty.
There we go down there.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm getting a chill just riding these streets near it, man, knowing how much that affected American history. There it is right there, bro. The museum stole all of this. Where's the hotel now? Okay. All right. Yeah.
You want to park?
Yeah, man. We ain't gonna be able to do all this riding around like we, in the circus or something. Yeah, that go one right here. Wow. Here we are. Down the street from where I'm from. 1968. How old were you?
1968?
Yeah.
I'm 50 now, so.
You was born in what year?
63.
You were 5 years old, man. You didn't even know why the city was smelling like smoke every day.
And man, do you know, even though I was at that age, do you know that I still grew up around people that made a strong impression on me, that I knew what was going on.
Okay. Well, at 5, there's enough consciousness,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know there's something going on.
Right.
Yeah. You can't process all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, not being able to process all of it, but and I tell you what really stuck out to me about this brother, Dr. King, is that as screwed up as I've lived my life, I always, when I would look at the films about this guy, and when I came into a relationship with God, it was like, man, this guy was a true prophet right here.
Where you from?
Yeah.
Even though he was from Atlanta,
Right.
It went down in your backyard.
Right.
One of the most historic events in the history of this world.
Right.
Because it set off a depth charge. Because there were riots in '67, okay, around the country. Detroit, Newark, New Jersey, other urban centers were ablaze. The riot started in '65 in Watts, and it just built to a crescendo on April 4th, 1968, here in your hometown.
Wow.
The battle moved to another front because that was it. That was the last straw. You see, folks said if they done killed the dreamer, then we might well go ahead and put these signs and stuff down and go get some weapons.
Yeah.
Because the Panthers kicked in after that.
Right.
Because he was responsible for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So this is the National Civil Rights Museum. And what's ironic about this being here right now is the fact that your homeboy Lucas Johnson, who introduced me to you, wrote the story that's going to bring audio tapes to this facility right here.
Wow.
That were a part of the King's legacy.
Wow.
Hey Gwen, I'm standing here in front of the National Civil Rights Museum doing a film documentary for my book, Real Men Don't Play. And let me call you back in a few minutes because I'm with a brother who's from Memphis, and we're literally standing in front of, where Dr. King caught that bullet in 1968, So, okay, then I'll hit you back, huh? All right then. Yeah, wow. Let's walk over here, man. What's going through your mind, man, right now, man?
I guess the reality of this is where it all went down. And,
They left these cars sitting here and stuff.
And then it makes me think about not just this leader here, but any leader that has been for people of color actually got slain from some shape, form, or fashion.
See, that's why I need my videographer, James Catherine. James, wherever you are, this would look a whole lot better if you was doing this instead of me. But this is something, man. I don't know if they're gonna let me videotape in here or not. Wow. Look at these cars, man. Wow. It says here, these two cars represent the original automobiles parked in the Lorraine Motel courtyard on April 4th, 1968. Dr. King and his associates were scheduled to go to dinner in the cars at 5 p.m. These are not the original cars, but these are the two type of cars they was traveling in. An old Dodge and of course a Cadillac, or we some Cadillac peoples. Wow. This is deep. This is deep. I'm still trying to figure out where that shot came from. Was it back up here? It had to be. Over there.
One of these,
yeah.
I think it was like over hotels over that way.
Because those people walk, it must be over there, yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, let's shut this down for a minute and